Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Micah. Today I have another tag video for you, and today's tag is about eyeshadow palettes. My favorite thing. This is hot off the press because I just saw Samantha March and Allie Glines doing this tag as like a collab, and I thought, hey, if I can do a tag where I can chat about eyeshadow palettes, I need to do it. So I believe this is like a TikTok kind of thing. That's what Samantha March explained in her video. We'll also make sure to link their original videos down below. I didn't think of this. I definitely got this idea from other people. And what it pretty much is that there are different categories, and for each category, I will show you one, sometimes two palettes, and sort of, you know, talk about eyeshadow palettes so that you also get to know my collection a little bit better. So let's just get started. So the first one is newest eyeshadow palette, and this is super hot off the press because I just picked it up from the post office. If you saw my wish list video a few weeks ago, then you know that one of the items on my wish list, and I said then, if it restocks, I'm gonna get it straight away. I got an email from an online web shop here in the Netherlands the other day, and I was like, I need to snatch it up. So I'm gonna keep it in its outer packaging like this, because that way I can just protect it a bit better, and since it's so big, I can't put it anywhere in my storage. So I'm just gonna keep the box. I don't like the Jeffree Star like outer packaging. It feels very flimsy and cheap. So that's why I haven't kept any of the other ones, but this is what it's of course about. Oh, it's got the purple velvet, which, you know, I'm not a fan of, and it's quite bulky. But it looks a bit like a jewelry case, and then you just have the palette right there. Haven't swatched it yet, haven't touched it at all. I just picked it up, checked to see whether it was okay, and that's all I've done with it so far. So this is definitely one that I'm gonna have to sort of put on the to try pile now that I have it, and I'm super stoked to finally be trying my new Jeffree Star Bloodlust palette. So that's one I will be playing around with. Hopefully soon, I'm not sure yet. I'm still making my way through some of my Black Friday purchases, so bear with me. All right, so then we have oldest palette, and I still have my oldest palette, and I think you can still get this. Because what I think the oldest palette in my collection I still own would be this, the sleek Nude, Au Naturel Nude collection. And this is the neutral palette I owned before I owned any of my naked palettes. So this is ancient. But I still have it, and the only reason why I still have it is because of this shade here. This is called Taupe. It's a champagne shimmer. It's not a taupe. Let me swatch that for you. It's a really, really stunning champagne shade, and I know it seems like such a basic shade to have and like in a palette, but I don't know. There's just something about this shade that I really, really like. I mean, this is not yet super dry or flaky or anything like that. It still works wonderfully, and that's one of the reasons why I still own this palette, is because of that shade. And then it has like all of the neutrally mattes that you could possibly want. It's a bit more on the cool tone side. I used to use this a ton. I don't reach for it all that often anymore, of course, but it's a good basic palette, and they do still sell this, I believe. The next category would be most expensive eyeshadow palette, and I have two options here for you, because I have one palette, which is just like retail, what it retails for is just outrageous. But when you look at how many grams you get in this compared to this, you will see why this one is also a very bougie purchase. Let's just talk about the most obvious choice. The most expensive palette I own is the Natascha Denona Gold palette. These retail, I think, for $129 in the US. Over here, they're 113 euros. I got this from the French Sephora when I was there last summer, and you've heard me rave about this palette. I absolutely love this because it has all of these really interesting textures that makes for really interesting looks. And for me, this just also, because it has a couple of those greens, it's just more than a boring neutral palette, you could say. So that's why I really like this one. And then another palette that I think is very, very expensive, especially for how much product you get. I mean, the Natascha Denona, this is 15 times 2.5 grams of product. You get over 35 grams of product in this palette. So even though it's super expensive, you do get 15 shades and you do get a huge amount of product. because that's what Natascha Denona is known for. It's really difficult to pan those palettes because you get 2.5 grams in each of the pans, which is outrageous. That's like, I think a MAC shadow is like 1.3, something like that. But we can get bougier than that, because if you then look at how many grams are in a Charlotte Tilbury little quad, this is the vintage Vamp. This comes with 5.2 grams of product. You get 4 shades, and this retails for half the price of a Natascha Denona palette. These retail for like 60, maybe 65 euros. It depends on where you live, maybe 58 in some places, but they're around the 60 euro mark for 5 grams of product. I rest my case. I think actually if you were to calculate it, if you were to do the math, then I think for how much product you get, the Natascha Denona ends up being cheaper in the end. Yeah. Then most affordable eyeshadow palette, and again, I have 2 options here because one is just most affordable as in retail price. This is the Essence Beautiful palette, and this has been discontinued. These retailed for $5.99 or $6.99, I believe. And in here you get 9 super neutral shades. I love to travel with this. It is a little bit big for travel, but it does give you all the options you need if you want to go for a neutral palette. So that's why I like that one. And it is the most affordable. I do have some other Essence et Catrice and like Makeup Revolution stuff, but those all start around the 10 euro mark. I don't have many palettes anymore after my declutter where I have palettes that are more like around the 5 euro mark. I used to have a couple of MUA palettes that were like 5 euros. I used to have the Iconic Division by Makeup Revolution that was 5 euros. And I haven't tried any of those baby elf palettes yet that everybody keeps raving about as being super affordable. I don't have those yet. So this is the one that is the most affordable currently in my collection. But again, if we look at how much product you get versus what you pay for it, then I think Juvia's place is a good place to start. This is 32 grams of product. You get 9 shades, and this retails for like $15. So Juvia's Place, super affordable brand, especially if you see how big the pans are and how much product you get in each one. You get a ton of product at a super affordable price point, and the quality, especially of this Tribe palette, is amazing, amazing. So you know I had to mention some Juvia's. For the next category, I have to pick my most everyday palette, and you know, I think what's coming. Lorac Pro 3. Lorac Pro 3 is my favorite everyday basic like go-to palette. So much so that this shade here, I'm not sure if you can see that. So this shade right here is one that has a huge dent in it and one that I think I will be hitting pan on very soon. So yeah, I have a ton of dents in this one. I use this so much. And this is the first like neutral palette where I really felt, well, I have a few more, but this is the neutral palette where I feel I can use all the shades and it's not too dark and smoky on me. It's a very basic neutral everyday palette. This is also, if I need a foolproof look and I just want to know for sure that it's gonna work, this palette. And then the next category is most colorful, and as you can see today, I'm wearing a very colorful look on my eyes. I decided to match it a little bit with what's in my dress. It's got this like turquoisey purple and like pink, so I sort of went with the purple mostly on my eyes. And the palette I used is the Slush 2 palette by September Rose Cosmetics, but I have another option for you because while this is super colorful, I haven't tried all the shades yet, so I don't know yet how this performs, but since it's what I'm wearing on my eyes today, I thought I could include it really quickly. But I think my most colorful eyeshadow palette would have to be the Certify Tropical Wonders palette. This is one of my favorite rainbow palettes. You get a really good spectrum here. All the shades you need are there. This sunray yellow is really, really stunning. I like the range of purples that it gives you. And then you do get like a really good hot pink. You get some really pretty greens in here. And then you do, like this top row is a bit more neutral. And then you get a white, a black, and a gray to really tie all the looks together. So it's colorful, but it also gives you all the other things that you need to do. But I think that this one is about to give this one a run for its money because this is the first time I've used it. This is the first look I've done with it. So I can't say too much about it yet. But in terms of color, I mean, you get the full rainbow spectrum in this, don't you? Then we're gonna talk sizes, smallest and biggest. My smallest palette that I think, because I have a couple of quads, but I don't feel that they really count as palettes. So I figured that this is roughly the size of a quad, but still you get 9 shades. So I have a bunch of these little Huda Beauty Obsessions palette. This is the Nude Obsessions Light. This is one of my favorite ones. It's a really pretty, again, neutral everyday palette, and I think they are very nice, compact little palettes. My biggest palette, and I could have gone with my Jeffree Star Bloodlust again if I'd wanted to, because that's definitely big, and also because it has the clasp, it's a bit annoying to store. But in terms of like really big palettes, I don't own any Morphe or any of those like really gigantic like 35 or like 39 pan palettes. I don't have those. So, or a Jaclyn Hill palette, I don't have any of those. My largest palette, I think, in terms of like how many shades it contains, would probably be my Jeffree Star Jawbreaker palette. But then I thought, this is the Clionadh Stained Glass Single Shadow palette, and I've got single shadows in here right now. So perhaps it's a bit cheating because it's not like an build it like pre-made palette. But this is gigantic. This is larger than the Jeffree Star Bloodlust. I just put them next to each other, and this, it's not as thick, but in terms of like size, this is just a little bit bigger, like a hair. So if we're just talking large versus like if we're just talking size, and this is the largest palette I own. Then we're talking hyped products. So what is a product that you think is worth the hype? And I think that a eyeshadow palette that is definitely worth the hype is this, the Melt Muerte palette, because I tried this last, like, I really like Melt as a brand, I really like their aesthetic, but this, like, I hadn't tried many of their eyeshadows, I just had a few of their stats before trying this. I didn't buy the Gemini straight away, I didn't buy the Smoke Sessions, I was like, oh, I don't really need them. But because I tried this, I now also own the Gemini and the Smoke Sessions because I just liked it that much. So this is the Muerte palette, and this collection is completely worth the hype. You get some greens and teals going into blues, and then you get these like wine colors into a bright red, and then a really pretty like shimmering champagne-y, like really soft gold shade, you could say. So stunning, stunning. I'm in love with these. Like, I love Melt. And that 420 palette that they've come out with, very intriguing, I'm not gonna lie. And then of course a product that you feel is not worth the hype. And this may come as a surprise, but I think this is not worth the hype. So I bought this when the hype had already died down because I was like, I don't really need the color Wayne Queen of Hearts. It's warm tones with purples. I have that in my Huda Beauty Desert Dusk, which I already owned at the time. So it was like, I don't really see why people are going gaga for it because things like this are already on the market. Until I spotted this in store and I swatched Royal Heart Highness, that's when I knew I need this palette in my life ASAP. So that's when I got it in the end, on a sale on Beauty Bay. But to be quite honest, I still feel the same I did at first why I didn't get it, which is that this palette is not super unique in terms of what's out there on the market. I don't understand how this got so much hype. Yes, it's got a really lovely formula, I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty, it works really well, but is this the best palette I have in my collection? No. And then we have the last two palettes I'm gonna share with you, and one of them is a favorite palette from a favorite brand. And my favorite brand when it comes to eyeshadow is Urban Decay, which I know is very controversial. Not a lot of people like their formula, but what I love about Urban Decay's formula is that it's buildable, that you don't, like something like this where it's like boom pigment, I sometimes find harder to work with because if the pigment goes on too intensely, then you need to work really hard to blend it out, which is not my preferred way. I like going in with just a little bit of a layer and then blending it out and then adding a bit more, and so that I can really control the intensity of the look that I'm going for. And I feel that Urban Decay is really good at that. It's just not something that a lot of influencers and like beauty gurus on social media are recommending to most people because they want to have boom pigment. actually when eyeshadow, like when I do finger swatches for reviews and they go like on and I'm like boom pigment, I'm always a bit nervous how it will go, because very often I find those a lot harder to work with. But one of my favorite, like I looked at all my Urban Decay palettes and I was like, what is my favorite? And for a very long time that was the Naked 3, and I still really like that palette, but when I tried it I was so impressed with the Naked Honey. I could have gone for the Born to Run, but to be quite honest, I already tried so many of their Vice palettes and I just think it's a Vice palette but repackaged. So that's why that one didn't make the cut. But I think that this is just something that's unique and something different also in my large eyeshadow palette collection. I think the formula is on point, so I was like, if I really have to pick a favorite eyeshadow palette by Urban Decay, I think it's the Naked Honey by now. Which, I didn't see that one coming before doing this video actually. I really thought it was still going to be Naked 3, but I still love that palette though, still love it. But my most used eyeshadow palette, we're gonna stick to Urban Decay, would be the Naked 2. This is my very old Naked 2. This has since been discontinued. And again, this never really shows very well on camera. Maybe it does now. Maybe you can get the light to catch it a bit. But I have dents in YDK, Verve, Pistol, Suspect, Snakebite, and Chopper. And for me, with my very light hand and the fact that I really like to build up a look, like I'm not someone who goes digging into shadows to get the pigment out. I sort of like, especially with these like rectangular pans, what I like to do is I take my brush and I sort of swipe it across the entire pan, and that's how I use my shadow. So that's why I never really hit pan, because I don't take my brush and like go in one little corner and then scrape the pigment away from one side, which is what most people who pan products seem to do. I don't do that. I really sort of gently go in one swipe and that's it. So this is definitely one, like, I mean, you can't even really see it very well, but that one has a dent, this one has a dent, this one has a dent, that one has a dent. Like, they all have huge dents in them, and I go back to this palette every single time I want it. Like, it's this and my Lorac Pro 3 that I go back and forth to, and the Naked 3 actually. Those are like my 3 go-to palettes that if I don't know what to do and I just need a look that I know is going to come out perfectly for me, I just reach for this. And that's why I've used it so much. Plus it's cool tones, which is what I find most flattering on myself. Oh, and I now realize that I skipped one. Oh no. Because I was like, hey, I have another palette sitting here, but we're just doing these out of order then, I guess. But another one is Best Memory. And for that, I need to show you this. This is the Sephora and Pantone Universe palette that was out 6 years ago, I think. Not a great palette in terms of quality, but the only reason why I still have this sitting in my memory box, I'm not keeping this in my collection anymore, is because I have such amazing memories attached to this. This is a palette that I bought back when I first really got, like, not when I first got into makeup, like I got into makeup a good while before this. But at first for me, I was really much more blogging about like nail polish and stuff. So makeup was sort of like the side gig. And then I think around like 5-6 years ago, I got much more serious about trying makeup and trying new products. And this is the palette I bought in Boston. I still remember buying it at the Sephora in Boston in this like shopping mall that was really close to my hotel at the time. I was traveling, and when I see this palette, I'm just instantly taken back to that trip. This palette is that trip in a nutshell. I traveled to Toronto, Boston, and New York for 2.5 weeks by myself, and I loved it. And yeah, Boston was great. I really liked Boston. It was a great place to be. And this just, I mean, it's a very colorful palette. It's just that everything has shimmer and everything is like satin and sort of blends away into the same thing. I mainly always kept it around for this like aqua kind of shade. It's a very nice like bright minty green. That was my favorite one, but these were very powdery and they're not the best quality by any means. But I remember buying this because it was like, I remember I wanted to try an eyeshadow palette from Sephora. And that's why I picked this one up. I'm not even sure why anymore. But yeah, this is that trip in a nutshell. So those were all of the palettes I wanted to mention in today's tag. Thank you very much to Samantha March and Allie Glines for doing this video first and coming up with the idea. If you have a channel or an Instagram, make sure you pass this idea around. And let me know also in a comment down below if you want to answer these questions. I would love to know what your like newest purchase is or your most memorable eyeshadow palette or something like that. That would be cool. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more by me. I make 3 new videos a week on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So stay safe, stay healthy, and then I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.